"Security, arrest her." My father said it into the microphone in front of 700 employees, 12 board members, 3 news cameras, and the man from the FBI he thought had come to protect him. He did not point at a thief. He did not point at a stranger. He pointed at me, his own daughter. I was standing at the edge of the stage in the black dress he told me was too plain for the Ellison name, holding a sealed blue folder against my chest. My employee badge had already been deactivated. My company email had been wiped. My office had been emptied into 2 cardboard boxes and left beside the service elevator like trash. The security guards moved toward me. My father smiled, not widely, not dramatically, just enough for me to understand that he had waited years for a moment where I would be small in public and he would be believed without question. Then a voice came from behind him. "Gentlemen, step away from Dr. Vale." My father turned, annoyed. The man in the navy suit near the board table rose slowly. Everyone in the room knew him as a federal cybersecurity guest speaker invited for the company's annual Trust Summit. But I knew his real purpose. He reached into his jacket, opened a leather credential case, and said, "Nathaniel Cross, Federal Bureau of Investigation." The room went silent. My father laughed once. "Director Cross, surely this is unnecessary. She has stolen proprietary files." Agent Cross looked at me, then at the blue folder, then back at my father. "No, Mr. Ellison," he said. "She returned them." Then he took a pair of handcuffs from inside his jacket. And the first person who lost his freedom in that ballroom was not me. It was my father. My name is Mara Vale, and until that morning, the world knew my father as the kind of man who built things. Cassian Ellison was the founder and CEO of Ellison Biometric Systems, a company that supplied secure identity software to hospitals, airports, research labs, banks, and government contractors. If you had ever pressed your finger to a scanner at a medical center or used facial verification at a secure facility, there was a chance some piece of his company touched your life. The public loved him. Magazine covers called him the man who made identity safer. Conference hosts introduced him as a visionary. Universities gave him honorary degrees. Business podcasts treated his pauses like wisdom. At home, he was not a visionary. He was a weather system. Everything changed according to his pressure. My mother used to say, "Your father is under a lot of responsibility." That was her explanation for everything, for missed birthdays, for slammed doors, for the way he corrected us in front of waiters, for the way he turned disappointment into a room no one could breathe in. My older brother, Graham, learned early how to survive him, agree quickly, laugh at his jokes, praise his instincts, never bring him a problem without making him feel like he had already solved it. I went the other direction, not because I was brave, because I could not lie convincingly. If my father said something cruel, my face showed it. If he made a weak argument, my silence betrayed me. If he asked whether I admired him, I hesitated 1 second too long. That was enough. He loved Graham like an heir. He managed me like a defect. When I was little, I used to wait outside his study with drawings. Usually they were diagrams, locks, codes, mazes, little imaginary machines that opened only if you solved a pattern. He would glance at them and say, "Neat." Then he would turn back to his screens. But when Graham once drew a crooked rocket in blue marker, my father framed it. That sounds small. Small things teach children where they are allowed to stand. My mother died when I was 19, ovarian cancer, fast and merciless. In the last weeks, when she was too thin to lift a mug, she started telling the truth in pieces. One night, she held my hand and said, "Mara, your father respects strength only when it serves him." I whispered, "Does he love me?" She closed her eyes. "He loves what he can name." I did not understand, not fully. Years later, I would. After she died, I changed my last name legally from Ellison to Vale, my mother's maiden name. My father called it theatrical. Graham called it disrespectful. I called it breathing. I still joined the company 5 years later. That surprises people. They ask why I would work for him if I knew what he was. The answer is complicated. I had a doctorate in applied cryptography and privacy architecture. I had built systems designed to protect medical identity records from exploitation. Ellison Biometric Systems was building the largest hospital identity platform in the country. If done properly, It could protect millions of patients from fraud. If done badly, it could become a surveillance weapon. I told myself I joined to make sure it was done properly. That was true. It was not the whole truth. Some part of me still wanted him to see me, not as a daughter waiting outside his study, as a mind. I entered the company as Director of Privacy Systems, not because he gave me the role, but because the board insisted. Ellison had been facing criticism from healthcare regulators, and hiring someone with my credentials looked good. My father enjoyed looking good more than he hated needing me. On my first day, he walked me through the executive floor. Glass walls, white floors, soft lighting, everywhere the company logo, a silver fingerprint inside a blue circle. He stopped outside my office and said, "Do not confuse your title with authority." I looked at him. "Good morning to you, too." His jaw tightened. "People will assume you are here because of me. No, they'll assume I survived you." That was the first time I saw fear flicker behind his eyes, not because I had power, because I was no longer begging. The first year went well publicly. We launched Guardian Key, a biometric identity system for hospital networks. It matched patients across fragmented records, reducing duplicate files, insurance errors, and misidentification. In theory, it could prevent patients from receiving the wrong medication or being denied treatment under a mistaken identity. My team built the privacy layer. Encrypted templates, consent logs, access controls, deletion rights, internal audit trails. I insisted every scan should leave a trace of who accessed it, when, why, and under what authorization. My father hated that friction, he called it. I called it accountability. In meetings, he would smile at clients and praise my ethical rigor. Then behind closed doors, he would say, "You build brakes like a person who has never driven fast." I would answer, "You drive fast like a person who assumes someone else will die." He did not like that either. The first sign something was wrong came from a hospital in Arizona. A compliance officer named Jules Mercer called me directly, her voice low and tense. "Dr. Vale, we're seeing access events that don't match our internal users." "What kind of events?" "Patient identity lookups. Thousands of them. After hours. Tagged as maintenance." I sat up straighter. "Maintenance by whom? That's the issue. The logs show a system token, but our IT says they didn't authorize it." I asked her to send the log exports. When I opened them, something in my chest tightened. The access pattern was too clean, too deliberate. Names, birth dates, facial geometry hashes, insurance identifiers. Not full medical charts, but enough identity metadata to be dangerous. Enough to track, profile, merge, sell, or leverage. I traced the token back to an internal service called Bridge. I had never approved Bridge. I searched our architecture documents. Nothing. I searched change requests. Nothing. Then I searched a hidden admin registry most employees did not know existed. There it was, Bridge. Executive Analytics Connector Honor, Office of Strategic Growth. That meant my father, or Graham. Graham had become Chief Strategy Officer by then. He had no technical depth but a genius for saying empty things confidently. He called privacy a brand asset. He called consent a trust narrative. He called data sleeping revenue. The next morning, I asked him about Bridge. He was in the executive kitchen, adding oat milk to coffee he would never finish. "Bridge?" he repeated. "Sounds technical. It's extracting hospital identity metadata." He gave me the soft smile he used when pretending not to understand something he understood perfectly. "Mara, not everything labeled extraction is sinister. Where is the authorization?" "Ask infrastructure." I did, then ask Dad. "I'm asking you." His smile thinned. "You know, this is why people find you difficult. You turn collaboration into interrogation, and you turn theft into vocabulary." His eyes hardened. "Careful. That word, my family's favorite leash, careful. I was careful. I copied nothing illegally." I followed internal incident procedure. I opened a compliance inquiry. I requested a freeze on Bridge until authorization could be verified. I documented everything in the audit system my father had complained about since the day I built it. 2 hours later, my request was overridden. Reason: executive continuity, approved by Cassian Ellison. I went to his office. He had a corner suite overlooking the river. Behind his desk hung a black and white photograph of the first scanner prototype he had built in our garage. People loved that story. The genius father, the humble beginning, the family sacrifice. They never asked what the family sacrificed. He did not look up when I entered. Bridge is unauthorized, I said. He signed a document. Bridge is strategic. It is pulling hospital identity data outside approved purposes. It is generating risk models. For whom? Growth partners. What partners? He finally looked at me. Your job is architecture, not corporate strategy. My job is privacy. This violates consent terms. No, your interpretation violates business reality. I placed the log summary on his desk. Shut it down or I escalate to the board. He leaned back. There was no anger in his face now, only evaluation. You think the board protects the company from me? I think the board protects itself from liability. His eyes narrowed slightly. You have your mother's talent for mistaking moral discomfort for intelligence. For a second, I was 19 again, standing beside a hospital bed, holding my mother's cold fingers. Then I said, and you have your own talent for proving her right. I left before he could answer. That night, my badge stopped working for the executive archive. The next morning, my assistant told me 2 compliance folders had disappeared from our shared workspace. By noon, one of my senior engineers, Priya Shah, sent me a message on our secure channel, Priya. Someone cloned the audit repo at 2:41 a.m. using your admin key. My admin key was in a hardware token locked in my office safe. I checked the safe, the token was there. That meant someone had used a shadow credential, a duplicate. My father was not just hiding Bridge. He was preparing to make me look responsible for whatever came next. The proof object that saved me was not dramatic. It was an old blue folder. My mother had given it to me when I left for graduate school. Inside was a handwritten note, a copy of my legal name change, and a small paper card with a sentence she wrote during one of her lucid cancer nights. When powerful people rewrite rooms, keep your own record of the door. At first, I thought it was emotional advice. Later, I made it technical. I designed a private integrity ledger for my most sensitive work. Not company data, not stolen files. My own access records, decision logs, timestamped compliance objections, cryptographic hashes of documents I created, meeting notes signed with my private key. I called it the door. It lived offline on an encrypted drive inside that blue folder. Nobody at Ellison knew it existed, not even Priya. Every time I raised a concern, I wrote a short record, hashed the supporting document, and signed the entry. If a file was altered later, the hash would expose it. If someone claimed I approved something I never approved, the door would show the time-stamped objection. My father taught me one useful lesson. People who value control hate records they do not control. By the end of that week, I had enough to know Bridge was bigger than one hospital. 5 networks had unauthorized maintenance lookups, all routed through executive analytics, all masked as system diagnostics, all excluded from client-facing logs. The metadata was being packaged into population movement risk profiles for third-party partners. I did not yet know who the partners were. Then Jules from Arizona called again. Mara, I think someone contacted our CFO. Who? A private analytics company. Meridian Atlas. I wrote the name down. What did they offer? Predictive patient flow models based on identity-linked mobility patterns. They claimed they had anonymized insight from multiple hospital systems. My skin went cold. Anonymized, the most abused word in data. Send me anything you have. She hesitated. I could lose my job. So could I. That's not comforting. No, but it's honest. She sent me the pitch deck. The first page had a map of patient movement density by region, age bracket, insurance type, and chronic care probability. The data was supposedly de-identified, but the underlying fields matched Guardian Key Identity metadata. At the bottom of slide 14 was a client list. One name made me stop breathing. Asterion Federal Risk, a defense-adjacent contractor. This was no longer a corporate compliance problem. This was potentially federal. I spent that night building a clean evidence timeline, not conclusions. Facts, logs, overrides, missing records, shadow credential events, Meridian pitch deck, client list, my objections, board notifications that had bounced back marked, handled by executive office. At 4:12 a.m., I called the number my mother had once written on the back of a receipt, a name from before Ellison became a giant, Nathaniel Cross. When I was a child, he had come to our house twice. Back then, he was just Nate, an old friend of my mother's from college who made pancakes shaped like stars and never seemed comfortable around my father. After my mother died, he sent one letter. If you ever need help your father cannot intercept, call me. I had kept it inside the blue folder. I never thought I would use it. The number still worked. A woman answered first. Then, after a long hold, a man's voice came on the line. Mara? That almost broke me. Not Dr. Vale. Not Miss Ellison. Mara. Mr. Cross? Nate, he said gently. What happened? I looked at the evidence spread across my kitchen table. I think my father is selling biometric identity metadata from hospitals to private contractors. The line went quiet. When he spoke again, his voice changed. Do not send anything to me from company devices. Do not confront him further. Do not tell anyone you called me unless you trust them with your life and theirs. Can you meet in person? Yes. Bring only what you can legally possess. I know, I mean it, Mara. So do I. We met the next evening in a public library 2 towns over. He was older than I remembered, gray at the temples, same steady eyes. He wore no visible badge, but everything about him made the room feel observed. I gave him copies of what I could share legally. My own signed objections, client pitch material sent by Jules, publicly accessible corporate filings, screenshots of internal screens I had permission to access, and the door's integrity log proving timing. I did not give him raw patient data, he noticed. Good, he said. I'm not trying to burn evidence rules. Most people panic and overcollect. I'm not those people? No, he said. Your mother told me that. I looked down. What did she tell you? He folded his hands. That if Cassian ever turned his power on you, you would hesitate because part of you still wanted him to choose you. I hated that tears came instantly. Nate looked away, giving me privacy without leaving. She asked me to be reachable, he said. My mother knew? She suspected who he could become. Maybe who he already was. I wiped my face. I need to stop him. No, Nate said. You need to stay alive, stay clean, and let us investigate. I work there. That makes you useful. It also makes you vulnerable. He was right. The FBI investigation did not unfold like movies. No dramatic raids the next morning. No secret vans outside my apartment. No one handed me a wire and told me to be a hero. It was slow, careful, frustrating. Agents interviewed external witnesses. Subpoenas moved through sealed channels. Financial trails were traced. Partner companies were mapped. My role was narrow: continue my job, preserve records, report retaliation. Do not access anything outside my authorization. Retaliation came quickly. First, my team was reorganized. Priya was transferred to a special initiative under Graham. Then my access to Guardian Key's deployment logs was reduced. Then anonymous complaints appeared in HR, claiming I created a hostile environment by weaponizing compliance. Then a board packet leaked to the executive committee suggesting I had a conflict of interest due to personal hostility toward the CEO. My father called me into his office 2 days after that. Graham was there, sitting on the couch with one ankle over his knee. My father did not invite me to sit. I've been patient, he said. No, you've been strategic. Graham sighed. Here we go. My father slid a document across the desk. It was a separation agreement. You will resign quietly. 6-month severance, non-disparagement, standard return of company property. I read the first page. You forgot the part where I confessed to misconduct. Page 4, Graham said. I looked at him. He smiled. There it was. They wanted me gone, silent and marked. I closed the agreement. No, my father's face did not change. You will not survive a fight with this company. You mean with you. There is no meaningful difference. I stood. There will be. As I reached the door, he said, Your mother would be ashamed of what you've become. I turned back slowly. For years, that sentence would have destroyed me. That day, it clarified him. No, I said. She left me Nate's number. It was a mistake. I knew it the moment his eyes sharpened. But it was too late. He knew the name. He knew there was someone outside his reach. For the next 48 hours, everything accelerated. My apartment building reported a maintenance request I had not made. Someone tried to reset my personal email. A black sedan sat outside Priya's house for 30 minutes. Jules received a legal threat from Ellison's outside counsel. Graham sent me a text meant to look friendly. Graham, last chance to stop Dad from making this ugly, I replied. You helped build Bridge. He did not answer. Then the company announced the annual Trust Summit. The theme, Securing Identity in an Age of Fear. My father loved irony when he did not notice it. The summit was huge. Clients, investors, regulators, journalists, board members, senior employees. My father would deliver the keynote. Graham would announce new federal partnerships. There would be a panel on ethics, where I had originally been scheduled to speak before my name vanished from the program. Then HR emailed me. Mandatory attendance subject, executive recognition segment. I read the email twice. They were either planning to publicly rehabilitate me or publicly destroy me. Nate already knew. We believe he's going to stage a termination tied to data theft, he said over a secure call. How? Your shadow credential was used to package a file set last night. It included Bridge exports. We intercepted movement toward an external drop. They're framing me. Yes, my mouth went dry. What do I do? Attend. Bring the door. Bring no company data. Do not resist security if they approach, unless you are physically endangered. That sounds comforting. It isn't meant to. Will you be there? A pause. Yes. In what capacity? As someone your father invited. I almost smiled. My father had invited an FBI man into his own trap. The morning of the summit, I dressed carefully. Black dress, low heels, my mother's pearl earrings, no necklace, hair pinned back, the blue folder in my bag. Inside it were the door drive, printed integrity entries, my mother's note, and the letter Nate had once sent after her funeral. I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. I did not look like a victim. I did not look like a hero either. I looked like a woman about to walk into the room where her father had finally run out of shadows. Priya called as I was leaving. I'm scared, she said. Me too. They asked me to sign a statement that you ordered Bridge access. My heart clenched. Did you? No. I told them I needed my attorney. Good. Mara, Graham said if I don't cooperate, they'll report me for credentials use. Priya, listen to me. Do not lie for them, not even a small lie. The truth has already left the building. She was quiet, then she whispered, Okay. At the summit venue, everything was polished and bright. Blue lights washed the walls. Giant screens displayed the Guardian Key logo. A string quartet played near the entrance, because my father believed ethics sounded better with violins. My badge did not scan at registration. The woman at the desk looked embarrassed. Doctor, Vale, let me call someone. 2 security guards appeared before she touched the phone. Mom, we'll escort you. Where? Executive holding room. I'm scheduled to attend. Please come with us. People were watching. I went. The room was small, windowless, and too cold. Graham was inside, leaning against the table. Dramatic entrance, he said. Lazy trap. He smiled. You always thought you were smarter than the family. No, just less willing to rot with it. His smile disappeared. He stepped closer. You have no idea what Dad protected you from. That surprised me. Protected me. The board wanted you gone months ago. Because he fed them lies. Because you are a liability. I looked at my brother, really looked, the expensive suit, the perfect haircut, the tired eyes under the arrogance. You know Bridge is illegal. He flinched. Just enough. I lowered my voice. Graham, no. You can still tell the truth. He laughed, but it cracked. You don't get it. There is no outside for me. You left. You changed your name. You got to be morally pure from a distance. I stayed. I became what survival required. That wasn't survival. That was inheritance. He looked away. For 1 second, I saw the boy who once hid broken glasses under his mattress because Dad punished accidents like betrayals. Then the door opened. My father entered with 2 lawyers. He looked calm. Camera ready. Mara, he said. You forced an unfortunate morning. I said nothing. 1 lawyer placed a document on the table. Effect immediately. Ellison Biometric Systems is terminating your employment for cause, pending referral to law enforcement for theft of proprietary materials and unauthorized data access. I almost laughed. Pending referral? My father's eyes were flat. Security has recovered evidence from your office. What evidence? Files you had no reason to possess. You planted them, the lawyer said. Careful, Dr. Vale. There was that word again. My father stepped closer. You could have resigned with dignity. No, I could have lied with severance. He lowered his voice so only I could hear. You are not your mother. She knew when to stop. I looked at him for a long second. No, Dad. She knew she was dying. For the first time that morning, his control slipped, his mouth tightened, his eyes hardened. Then he straightened his jacket and turned toward the door. Bring her in after my opening. The keynote began 20 minutes later. I watched from the back with security on either side. The ballroom was full. Investors in front, employees in the middle, press along the side, board members at a raised table near the stage. And there, seated beside the board chair, was Nate Cross. My father introduced him as Director Cross from Federal Cyber Leadership, a valued voice in national trust infrastructure. Nate's face gave away nothing. My father gave the kind of speech that made people feel smarter for agreeing with him. He spoke about identity as dignity, security as care, trust as civilization's invisible architecture. He paused in all the right places. Then he shifted. Trust requires courage, he said. Not only to defend against outside threats, but to confront internal betrayal. The screens behind him changed. My employee photo appeared. A murmur went through the ballroom. My father's voice softened. This is painful. The individual involved is my daughter. There it was, the sacrifice performance again. He continued, but no person, no matter their family connection, is above the responsibility we owe our clients, our patients, and this nation. Security nudged me forward. My heart pounded, but my hands were calm around the blue folder. He gestured toward me. Doctor, Mara Vale has been found in possession of restricted files connected to unauthorized exports. Gasp's cameras turned. I saw Priya in the audience, pale and shaking. Jules Mercer stood near the press row, eyes locked on me. My brother was near the stage stairs. Looking sick, my father lifted his chin. The words echoed through the microphone. For one breath, nobody moved. Then the guard stepped toward me. Nate stood. Gentlemen, step away from Dr. Vale. The room shifted. My father's smile faltered. Director Cross? Nate opened his credentials. Nathaniel Cross, Federal Bureau of Investigation. This event is now part of an active federal enforcement action. The sound that moved through the ballroom was not a gasp. It was deeper, a collective intake of reality. My father recovered quickly. I'm sure we can address this privately. No, Nate said. You chose public. The first agents came in through the side exits, not rushing, not shouting, quiet, controlled, inevitable. Men and women in suits moved toward the stage, the board table, the AV booth, and the executive row. My father looked at the board chair. The board chair looked away. That was when he understood. He had not been abandoned in that moment. He had been surrounded for weeks. Nate walked onto the stage. Cassian Ellison, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, unauthorized access to protected health information systems, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, and related offenses. My father stared at him. This is absurd. Nate nodded to another agent. The ballroom screens changed again, not to my face, to a timeline. Bridge creation, executive override, shadow credential generation, unauthorized hospital lookups, Meridian Atlas transfer. Asterian contract discussions, legal threats to whistleblowers, attempted evidence planting under my credentials. Then came the audio, my father's voice from a recorded executive call. If Mara becomes a problem, make her the breach. Compliance people are most useful when blamed for the compliance failure. The room went absolutely still. My father's face turned gray. Graham closed his eyes. Nate looked at him. Graham Ellison, you are also under arrest. My brother did not fight. He simply sat down on the stage step like his bones had been removed. My father did fight, but not physically. Men like him do not swing. They declare, you have no idea what you're interrupting. Do you understand the contracts at stake? Do you understand who uses our systems? Nate stepped closer. Yes, he said, that's why we're here. Then he turned my father around and placed handcuffs on his wrists. The camera lights flashed for years. My father had built rooms where everyone waited to see what he would do next. Now everyone watched him being led through one. As agents escorted him off the stage, he saw me. For the first time in my life, he looked at me not with disappointment, not with contempt, not with ownership, with fear. Mara, he said, just my name, not Dr. Vale, not traitor, not daughter, Mara. I thought it would feel like victory. It didn't. It felt like standing in the ruins of a house I had once hoped could be repaired. Nate approached me after my father was taken out. "Are you okay?" "No." "Good answer." I almost smiled. He held out his hand for the blue folder. "May I?" I gave it to him. He opened it just enough to see the door drive, my mother's note, and his old letter. His expression softened for half a second. "She would be proud," he said. That was when I started crying, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough that Priya rushed from the audience and wrapped her arms around me without asking permission. "I didn't sign," she whispered. "I know. I didn't sign. I know." The board tried to salvage itself within hours: emergency statements, cooperation language, independent review, commitment to privacy, distancing. So much distancing, you would think my father had run the company from another planet. But evidence does not care about public relations. Meridian Atlas was raided that afternoon. Asterion's contract division received subpoenas. Hospital networks were notified. Regulators opened investigations. Patients would later be informed that identity metadata may have been misused. That part still hurts, because stopping harm does not erase harm. It only stops the lie that keeps it growing. I resigned the next day. The interim CEO called personally and asked me to stay through the transition. I said no. "We need your credibility," she said. "You needed my credibility when I warned you." She had no answer. I did agree to consult with regulators and victim notification teams. Not for Ellison, for the patients, for the hospital staff who had trusted us, for Jules, for every person whose identity had been treated like sleeping revenue. My father was released pending trial under strict conditions. Graham, too. Neither contacted me directly at first. Then Graham sent a letter through his attorney. It was short, Mara. I told myself I was trapped. I wasn't. I was scared, ambitious, and angry that you found a way out. I helped him because being chosen by him felt better than being free from him. That is not an excuse. "I am sorry, Graham." I read it 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. Apologies are seeds, not fruit. They need time before you know what they are. My father's message came later, not a letter. A statement through his legal team implying that I had been emotionally manipulated by federal investigators and that family tensions distorted internal governance processes. Family tensions. That was what he called federal crimes. I did not respond. The trial took almost 2 years. By then, the company had changed its name, sold divisions, paid penalties, and entered government monitoring. My father's face disappeared from the website. The silver fingerprint logo was retired. Guardian Key was rebuilt under court supervision with patient representatives on the privacy board. I testified for 6 hours. My father sat at the defense table in a dark suit, thinner than before, but still trying to look like the room belonged to him. The prosecutor asked me about Bridge, about my objections, about the shadow credential, about the staged summit accusation. Then she asked about the door. I explained it carefully. A private integrity ledger, time-stamped entries, document hashes, cryptographic signatures, independent verification. My father's attorney tried to make it sound obsessive. "Dr. Vale, is it common for employees to maintain secret records of internal disagreements?" I looked at the jury. "It is common for people as in unsafe systems to keep proof." The courtroom was quiet. He tried again. "Did you hate your father?" I looked at my father. He looked back, expression unreadable. "No," I said. "That was part of the problem." The prosecutor asked one final question. "Why did you not simply leave?" I thought of my mother, Priya, Jules, the patients, the little girl waiting outside a study with drawings. "Because leaving would have protected me," I said. The records protected the truth. My father was convicted on multiple counts. Graham pleaded guilty earlier and cooperated. He served less time, but not none. My father served more, not forever. Enough. When the sentence was read, he did not look at me. That was fine. I had spent enough of my life waiting for him to look. Afterward, outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. "Dr. Vale, do you feel vindicated? Do you forgive your father? Will you return to biometric security?" I stopped at the bottom of the steps. Nate stood nearby, not as a director on a stage now, just as the man my mother had trusted when she knew I might one day need a door. I turned to the reporters. I feel responsible, I said, because truth is not the end of repair, it is the beginning. That became the headline. Not the handcuffs, not the betrayal. The beginning. Life after public justice is quieter than people expect. There is no music when you wake up, no applause when you make coffee. You still have to answer emails, renew your driver's license, decide what to eat, learn how to sleep without waiting for the next attack. For months, I flinched when unknown numbers called. I kept checking locks. I dreamed of my father's voice saying, "Careful." Then one morning, I woke up and realized I had slept 7 hours. Healing announced itself like that, not with fireworks, with rest. I started a nonprofit privacy lab named Doorway. We help hospitals audit identity systems, train compliance teams, and protect whistleblowers before they become martyrs. Priya joined as technical director. Jules became our first advisory chair. Nate visits sometimes, always pretending he is not checking whether I am eating enough. On the wall of our conference room hangs my mother's sentence, framed simply, "When powerful people rewrite rooms, keep your own record of the door." Visitors ask who wrote it. I say, my mother. They ask if she was a lawyer. I say, no. She was a woman who understood my father. Graham wrote to me again after his release. This time he did not apologize. He told me what he was doing, community supervision, therapy, working in a warehouse under his middle name, learning how to be ordinary. At the end he wrote, "I used to think ordinary was failure. Now I think it might be where honest people begin." I answered that just one line, keep beginning. As for my father, I saw him once after sentencing. It was not planned. I was visiting my mother's grave on the anniversary of her death. I brought white tulips, her favorite. He was already there, standing stiffly in a gray coat, older than I expected. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "Mara." I almost left, but I stayed. He looked at the headstone. "She always knew you were stronger than Graham." "That's not love," I said. "That's ranking." He swallowed. Prison had taken some of his polish, but not all of his pride. Pride like his does not die easily. It negotiates. "I built something extraordinary," he said. "You corrupted something important." He nodded faintly. Not agreement exactly, but exhaustion. "I thought control was protection." "No, you thought control was proof that you mattered." He looked at me then. For once he seemed not angry, but empty. "Do you hate me?" There it was again. The question underneath everything. I thought carefully before answering. "No," I said. "But I no longer organize my life around proving it." He closed his eyes. I placed the tulips on my mother's grave. Then I walked away. That was the last time I saw him. People sometimes ask what the most satisfying moment was. They expect me to say the ballroom, the handcuffs. The look on his face when the FBI director said my name. But that was not the moment. The moment was much smaller. It happened late one evening at Doorway, after everyone else had gone home. I found an intern standing by the framed quote, crying quietly. She apologized, embarrassed, and said her supervisor at her old job had stolen her work and convinced her she had no proof. I handed her a tissue. She pointed at my mother's sentence and said, "I wish someone had told me this before." I said, "Someone is telling you now." That was the moment I knew my father had failed completely. Because he spent his life using systems to make people feel powerless. And I had built one small place where people learned to keep their doors. If you have ever been framed by someone more powerful, you know the terror is not just that they lie, it is that they understand rooms. They know who will be believed first. They know which words make you sound unstable. They know how to turn your defense into proof of guilt. So here is the lesson I learned the hardest way. Do not wait until the fire to start keeping records, save the email, write down the date. Keep the message, stress the follow-up, protect the original. Tell one safe person before the powerful person convinces you safety does not exist. And if the person trying to destroy you shares your blood, do not let that confuse you. Betrayal is not softer because it comes from family. Sometimes it cuts deeper because it knows exactly where you stopped wearing armor. My father stood in front of a ballroom and ordered security to arrest me because he believed reputation was stronger than truth. For a few seconds, he was right. Then the door opened, and truth walked in with a badge.